Kia ora koutou, welcome back to our ordinary council meeting. We'll move on to 7.7 Chief Executive Report. Jeff.
Cool thing. I'll take the majority of the report as read. A couple of things I would like to highlight. I noticed Mr. Pink was in the news again today with changes to building consent authorities once again. So my comments in there, which I received various emails from ministers providing us with advice around BCA. I just wanted to highlight the different views that I get from different ministers around what they expect us to be doing with the BCA. Some ministers are telling us to get out of being involved with consents because clearly we're a handbrake on the problem on the housing issue. While the same minister is telling me to get further involved with where we put houses because the electricity industry is worried about people building under high voltage power lines. So I find that rather frustrating. Anyhow, the minister's giving us advice. So the BCA is an area that is under a lot of change at the moment. So there's a number of consultations that are out with regards proposed changes towards that regulatory framework, and we'll keep you updated as and when those changes progress through to law. I'm happy to take questions on the remainder of the rather fulsome report.
Can I just a little bit of a segue from the Pink has the ability to build a reasonable sized house on the back of another house without needing too much in the way of red tape. Seems to me that could create quite a lot of activity in that area, and I think that would mean we'd have to revisit the SUIP. Otherwise, we're severely disadvantaging the rest of our ratepayers who only have the one house compared to people who put another one on.
Yep.
And I think it would be a bit unfair to people who are proposing to do that if we didn't signal that somehow. Because then otherwise next time we try and do it, people will say, but I built this thing in good faith and now you want another $5,000 a year for it. It's just an observation. I've got no idea how we go about that, but
is it 3 yearly or 6 yearly we get to review that?
It's mandated as no longer than 6. We can do it every 3. As I've pointed out, Mr. Pink is interested in the building control functions, and there is our concern is that could lapse into ignoring district plan rules and spatial planning rules. So people kind of view council as a one thing, and if I don't need a building consent from council, I don't need anything from council, where we do have a number of regulatory functions and some of them will still be required to be met. You are correct. If we're planning on considering a SUIP, we should signal that.
without having a revolution.
I thought, as you say, I think it'd be good for those people who are putting a habitable building on the back of their property to know that in the future they could potentially charge this much of a rate.
Only fair, I think.
Questions? Councillor Ayling.
Yeah, I had one on the same issue as well. I was wondering if Solitaire has Solitaire's department had to write a submission on this proposal of having granny flats being non and
Yes, we did.
and did we speak in favour or yes?
Wasn't so much about whether it was in favour or not. We were just trying to highlight the loopholes, and it was very much around that interface of the district planning requirements, the building consent requirements, because otherwise somebody goes and builds something that doesn't comply with district plan, and then we're the big baddie saying you need to get a consent, you need to get your neighbour's approval. X, Y, Z, it just turns into a nightmare. So I suspect we're going to be looking at a way where it might be a permitted activity under the Building Act, subject to getting a PIN, which is another component that we do as part of our consenting. So, you'd have to prove all of that to close that loophole. So it was, ours is much more on the technicality of it, as opposed to whether we think it's a good idea or not, because really if they think it's a good idea, they're just going to go ahead and do it.
Thank you.
Question? Further question? No further questions? I'm going to say one question, Jeff, just on the climate change strategy review. And is there any extra cost to council completing that strategy review on our own?
No, we were going to complete the review anyway, and we had to do our portion of that review. It is somewhat frustrating that we had a joint climate change advisor and the other joint party has decided that it's not a priority at this time and they wish to pick and choose. That is frustrating.
Thank you. Councillor Ayling.
With regards to an annual network environment performance report, do we know when we're going to get the results of our water network? I said it was submitted. Sorry, this is page 113, and possibly the person who would have known the answer just walked out the door.
Yeah, so we have submitted it, and we know the answer that our compliance was there are, as you will see in the annual report, there are a couple of measures where we have lost data, so we're deemed non-compliant without data. But I haven't got the answer now, but I'm certain that this morning Johannes said to us that Taumata Arawai were happy with our results as submitted, and there were no areas of major non-compliance. So I will confirm your question with the annual network environment performance report. We might actually see if we could get that potentially uploaded to our website if it's a public report.
Councillor Ayling.
I'll ask that one. I wondered if you could speak to the annual report delay and the problems that we've had with audit.
Sure. Audit are under significant pressure from lack of resource, and we have discovered that his delay has flowed into their engagement with us. We have one or two issues that we're working through in terms of classification of an item, and they required us to do further work on our water metrics. So our water metrics are run through an independent lab in the hut, and the auditors required us to do an additional independent report across the top of an independent report. We were desperately struggling with. But the short story is they are short on resources and time. They're balancing a number of engagements and we're getting pushed.
Again. Thank you. Councillor Laurence.
Just a comment. This is the first time we've met since Daffodil Day, and I can tell you it was a pretty good shopping day. 10,000 people in town. That's a conflict of interest. Well,
Make every day Daffodil Day.
All with the weather. Thank you, Councillor Laurence. The team did a fantastic job. Both our team, the Lions, Rotary, the owners of the Middle Run, everybody pulled together, the Plunkett groups, the school groups, Kununua College, I think it was. It was a fantastic day, and even the daffodils behaved, so it was good too.
Just on that, Jeff, does council recognise that there might be a potential limit required on the amount of stall holders? Does council believe that we could still carry on and increase from 200?
I haven't got the answer to that off the top of my head. So
We could go right around Dixon and just keep going.
Down Belvedere, yeah.
Yeah, I'm strong.
Stallholders we've ever had, and I think that's part of the debrief and the looking at planning for next year as to is there a cap for that?
Okay. Thank you.
We did find some challenges once again with the timing of the train, and that created a little bit of an issue where some families wish to go on the train from Carterton to Marston and back, and then also to Middle Run. And it doesn't appear the message got through that the timings don't really work for that. But again, a debrief.
Yep. Come out in the wash.
Hmm.
Thank you. Any further questions, discussion? We have one recommendation, and that's that we receive the report. I'm happy to move that. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Williams. All in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Good
Carried.
report, Jeff.
Team.
11.8, proposed framework for approval of memoranda of understanding and
Admit this did my head in for a little while when council asked for a framework as to which MOU council approve and which MOU staff approve. It took me a while to get my head around how we might actually divide that up. So what I've done here is a proposal around which MOU in MOA we believe should come to council and be seen by council and approved by council either as part of an annual plan or a long-term plan, or as a separate contract, and which should actually be approved by management. And obviously, down the bottom, we've separated out some grants whereby we believe those things will go through a grants committee. But essentially, I'm open to feedback on the framework. Now, you may note that I have ignored financial. The reason I've ignored financial was in my framework, they were in all of them. So the value was kind of irrelevant. Value was across all of them. Anyhow, I'm open to feedback. You can leave the report on the table and consider it for longer should you wish.
Glad you did this and not us.
It hurt for a while.
Councillor Newman.
I have also been very confused about this whole thing. One of the main things that I just doesn't quite make sense to me is how Cobblestones, Carter Court all sit up in that top one, strategic MOUs, purely because we've got somebody sitting on them as a representative in their constitution. It just to me doesn't make sense. You know, they should sit lower down in my mind. And I'm wondering if we should have a discussion about, do we actually need representation on those, or do we look at getting ourselves taken off while they're redoing their constitutions now as per the law requirements? Because they just seem to be sitting in a really funny place.
They don't seem strategic.
No, at all.
Thank you, Councillor Newman.
So I think we should have a conversation about coming off those, because I just don't understand why we are on there.
Neither do we.
So can we?
They're historical.
Okay, I think we really should have a conversation about.
Should we pass this agenda item over and bring it to a workshop? So
I'm more than happy to, because it's not a very clear-cut decision. I'd be more than happy to bring this to a workshop.
It's good one, isn't it? 2 or 3 weeks, or I'll make that
I
up.
think you might be making it up.
It's happened before, but I think there was good reasons why they were there in the first place, but there was no statute of limitations put on, and it's just crawled along beyond anybody's memory as to why they were on there in the first place.
Yeah.
sorry.
I thought the framework was really good, Jeff. I think the categories makes sense. I would totally agree with Councillor Newman's point of, I don't know why some of them are in those categories, but I think as a framework stands, I think it would be useful going forward to have this kind of thing in place, and understanding for us as councillors who those strategic partners are is really important if we're engaging with people on the street and don't really understand that level. So I think even for the ones that are at operational level, for us to have a list somewhere, knowing what agreements are in place is valuable, even if we aren't the ones making those decisions. Just to have a heads up is useful. I agree, a workshop would be helpful for us to have conversations offline regarding the future engagement with those groups, because I think, yeah, there's been a historical reason for them being there, but I don't know if that should be the case going forward.
Workshop on the 13th on the grants policy.
Oh, you didn't make it up.
Well, I half made it up.
So that workshop is around looking at the framework for the grants policy. And we've only got, I think, an hour booked in for that. So we could do before or after.
But if we agree a workshops,
Yeah.
if we agree a workshop's helpful, then we can schedule
Schedule it on.
Yep, I'm happy with that.
Yep. Sounds like a plan.
We'll take that as an action, Jeff, and let this move.
Absolutely, we'll extend the workshop on the 13th.
Should we just receive the report then?
There's no recommendation for that.
There's,
No.
yes, there is one.
To adopt, but if you want to, you may just want to leave it lie on the table and we'll bring it back later.
Okay, 7.9, Chief Executive Performance Review Committee. 4.
Again, we discussed separation of the Chief Executive Review Committee from the Risk and Insurance Committee. I was asked to draft a terms of reference and take that through Risk and Insurance, noting that should Council adopt this, we will also make the required changes to the Risk and Insurance Committee, removing these functions from there and the responsibilities from there.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions? Councillor Ayling.
Just with regards to, we haven't had a conversation as a council with who would be on that committee. Is that something we have to decide now to make these recommendations happen, or can we set up the committee, separate it out, and then at a later date? Yeah.
In the discussion and on page 127, the terms of reference suggest all of council as the membership.
Right.
So, I mean, that would be my preference when we come to recommendations, for the purpose that in shifting it over, it would give all councillors a bit of experience in this process, and it would only be for a year because there's an election coming up. So it gives us all the opportunity to learn a bit about how it goes.
Mhm.
So if we follow the terms of reference as drafted, then
Not the recommendation.
that's the advice that I would be offering in point 2. I'd also be keen that Tangata Whenua had a membership and also an independent advisor / consultant, particularly when it comes to KPIs and also remuneration, so that we are given the best advice on the day.
Any further questions, discussion around that?
No,
With recommendations?
we've been through this at some length, I think, so.
Okay. Are you all okay that we take all 4 as one?
Can I ask a question on, or clarify preference for chair, deputy chair?
Yeah.
On
Recommendation 2 goes to all of council.
Isn't that in the terms of?
That was why I was confused.
Well, the question is, so what would council prefer as the recommendation in the draft terms of reference is an independent advisor or the deputy mayor is the chair. Do you have a preference for which one?
I think it would be good to have an independent advised as well, Dale, about just having that external expertise in an HR perspective with KPIs and things like that, and just a little bit more guidance and the experience, I think, would be really beneficial for everyone around the table to also learn, particularly in the first year. My opinion.
I've seen both. Generally, it's the deputy mayor or a councillor with experience, simply because there's a cost to a consultant, particularly if they're chair, in terms of preparing. And as I think, as long as we have the independent advice to make sure the council doesn't go down a rabbit hole or find itself in a place that it can't get out of, when you're dealing with employment law and procedure around contracts. The only thing that I know is really important is that the mayor, whoever the mayor is, doesn't chair that committee, simply because the mayor and CE's relationship is very, very important, and the chair, you know, has a slightly different responsibility in this process. So I guess I would say the preference of chair could be the deputy, deputy mayor or council or. Don't think it's necessary to have a consultant, but definitely not a mayor. That would be my advice.
Yep, I think that makes sense. I think having the external expert HR, having sat on the audit and risk, it felt like we were missing an HR person doing, like any other organisation would have an HR person in the room having those conversations, and having us all there going, well, this seems fair, seems a bit risky. Absolutely. So I think having that would be a better way going forward. Having the deputy, I would agree. I think having the mayor heading the group that's talking about the CEO is a risky move as well. So having the deputy in that place would be smarter.
Open to a councillor if they, up to the elected representatives.
Well, I've had that role before in Porirua, the CE's employment committee, so I'm relatively familiar with that process. I'm happy to do it if, you know, it's entirely up to the team.
I'm happy for you to do it, Dale. Also, I chaired the actual CE appointment committee last triennium too, but I think with all your experience, Dale, I'd be really comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I think it's invaluable experience that we should be utilising. Not taking it away from anybody else or anything, but I think it is important to have the experience, and also, as we said, an independent appointed advisor in an HR role, basically.
And this applies really just through the next election.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Just applies through the next election.
One meeting.
So we've got to do chair and deputy chair. So if we did Dale as chair and S Cretney as deputy chair.
Yeah.
And with the seat open for Māori or.
So full council and a tangata representative and.
Yeah, I mean, it's overreach in general for a committee, but I think this, because we're making the transition 2 years into a triennium, it makes sense for us all to learn a bit out of the process.
Okay. Happy with that discussion and that advice, Jeff? And
So just in the first recommendation, then adopt the terms of reference. Can we adopt the terms of reference with the noted changes to the chair? Because the terms of reference actually states something slightly different.
Yeah.
so note the change. Adopts the terms of reference for the Chief Executive Employment Review Committee, noting the change of the
Chair and deputy chair.
chair and deputy chair. Chair will be Councillor Williams and deputy chair will be Deputy Mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I think covers recommendations 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Could drop 2 and just adopt 1.
All okay with that? We have a move. I'm happy to move that in a second. Councillor Newman, all in favour?
Aye.
Right.
That was 1 and drop 2. So 3 and 4. Take them together.
Aye.
Councillor Dallin. Councillor Gallen, all in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Appointment to the District Licensing Committee, 7.10 on page 128.
Probably don't really even need to be up here with this paper. You'll just note that on the meeting on the 26th of June, one of the resolutions was to make the list of people, the term, and then the part about the deputy chair for the remainder of the training commencing 1 July to 11 October 25, that was to be made public once the applicants had been notified. The public excluded minutes were confirmed on the 18th of September, and as per that resolution, this paper is just bringing that decision in public for you to ratify.
Thank you. Questions? Discussion? Nope. We have one recommendation, that's that we receive the report. We have a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ayling and Councillor Newman. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, Solitaire. 7.11, Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act requests.
Back again. So, Lagoimas, the period stated in the report. I'll take the report as read. The number of Lagoimas seem to have dropped off a few weeks. In September we had 9 and October we've received 3 so far. List of Lagoimas attached. Questions?
Questions? Discussion? You really do want to get finished by 4:30.
No questions, but Dale, you've got to speak.
Whatever I always say, just ditto.
Noted.
Okay. There's no questions or discussion. We'll move to the recommendation. That's that we receive the report. I'm happy to move that. We have a seconder. Councillor Gallen, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay. 7.12, Service Requests and Complaints. Page 134.
Same again, same standard report, and number of service requests seem to be a bit lower over the period, and a copy of them attached. Number of complaints dropped a little bit. Copy of the complaints and the service requests attached. One interesting complaint at the end of the report. But as usual.
Questions? Councillor Ayling.
Just with regards to the one at the bottom. What is the policy with regards to constant graffiti happening on our main street shop windows? Is that something that council does have to manage, or it's all the police and we just sit back and
Property owner.
property owners? Okay.
So what's being done is legal.
Well, it's graffiti.
It's happening often on my morning walks.
Yeah.
It's
Maybe a paint pot.
yeah. Sorry.
Technically, so's jaywalking.
So if you see it happening, you just let it happen.
So where it occurs on council property and public
public facilities, we deal with it.
Yeah.
Obviously. Where it happens on private property, we can inform the landlords or the property owners, but usually we try not to deal with it because that then often can put staff in conflict with the author.
Yep.
Which has led to all sorts of issues. Prefer not to get in conflict with the author.
Sorry, one last question. With the average number of working days completed, 0, does that mean we just ignore them? They've not been responded to, or?
They are unlikely to be responded to if, some of the complaints that we've received following the rates invoices going out, we won't respond to.
Just in respect of that, I try to understand what these people are saying, but is it your impression that most of the complaints revolve around the fact that the installment's much, much bigger because there's only 3 of them and people didn't understand that?
Yes.
Seemed to be what they was.
Yes.
Yeah, some of the complaints and some of them were verbal, so they're not always captured here, as people did not understand that 3 installments meant it was spread over same amount over 3. They thought that we were charging them more or not understanding that the amount was still going to be the same. You could choose to pay for it differently or at the same rate. So it was a lack of understanding and a perception
That the amount they were being asked to pay in November was what they were going to be asked to pay every quarter from now on.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I thought it was. In that case, that's not too bad, is it? Considering the mess we got ourselves into.
The thing that this shows us and the general public is just the language and the way that people feel it's okay to engage with
People.
Other human beings. I mean, I think it's quite disgraceful that people feel that that's appropriate to vent their frustration on anybody. It's very sad.
We've also had a lot of people contacting Wendy, our rates, and some have been via email, and some have been quite sort of upset by the process, but then Wendy has explained it very well, and then they've gone away very happy. But we've had some very upset customers at the counter who simply didn't understand what we were saying, no matter how much publicity, how much explaining.
That was always going to be a problem.
Yeah, but she's done a great job with those people who come in and she deals with them straight away.
Yeah.
Positive. Because
Yeah,
for me,
That's-
year is not.
that doesn't reflect the number of complaints we've had about the process and the issues and how many we've resolved in that process, which has been 99%.
I just appreciate those on the front line that carry out the work on our behalf. That, I like to think that this is only a really, really small minority of the people out there that we're serving. It's just a pity that some people can't moderate themselves.
And with that, no further discussion. We have one recommendation that we received before. We'll move in a second. Councillor Bella, in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 8, we have no exclusion of the public. Which moves us to Karakia Whakamutunga.
Steve, can you move the?
Yeah.
Please. Heard again. Technical term.
Are you going to lead us?
Beautiful, Mr. Lawrence, lead on. Quieter.
Kia whakaari.
Makaria te tapu, kia wātea ai te rā, kia turuki whakataha, kia turuki whakataha, We like, Sorry, everybody.